So if you think about, let's focus on a patient, yeah? Metastatic breast cancer is rampant worldwide, including here in the continent. So if a patient is diagnosed with breast cancer and there is a test to define basically whether that patient is HER2 positive or negative, and if that patient is HER2 positive, there is a product called Herceptin or trastuzumab, which I had the honor really to work on in the late 80s when I was at Genentech years ago. If you put that patient really on Herceptin and other products, her probability of survival, five-year survival, is in the high 90-95%. The same patient with no trastuzumab, her probability really of being alive 5 years post-diagnosis goes down really to 5 to 10%. So, and that's unfortunately what has been happening here in the continent, because the product, even though it's available and it has been around for more than 25 years, it's not affordable. We are talking about $60,000 to $70,000 minimum for a full course of trastuzumab. So with that in mind, what we have been thinking is this is a product that we have worked on. Monoclonal antibodies, basically precision medicine, are cutting edge now. So basically they are almost part of the standard of care of any kind really of diseases. And so for us, it was very important to make really sure that we were going to set up a place or a system here in the continent so that we can make it, produce it really here in the continent and make it really available to patients at the lowest price possible. So that's why many of us have decided to come back to the continent, work with several regulatory, Ministry of Health and government officials to set up a manufacturing facility here in, and we have decided to do it here in Rwanda. I have been all over the continent. I assess really the pros and cons. There are many amazing countries that we do plan over time really in going to. But what we have seen here in Rwanda is the whole system is set up, is so friendly, and it's set up really to set up really any kind of infrastructure as long as really make really sense in a most expedited way. When we first really met with the various organizations, including the leadership team at the RDB, the fact that there is a one-stop shop where you don't have to go right and left, but get a response within hours sometimes, or at the latest within a few days, that's something that you might not really find in many places. So we wanted to increase our probability for success, and Rwanda has all the ingredients to make us really achieve our goal. Let's say we go for oncology, cancer. Yeah. So at the base of any cancer treatment, once a diagnosis, is chemotherapy. Chemo helped. Chemo is part of the tools armamentarium that clinicians really have. However, it also has its own really side effects. But when it comes to monoclonal antibody, we are talking about precision medicine. So there are receptors that are identified within the tissue of the patient. So the products really that we give specifically attack those receptors and neutralize those receptors. Unless you do that, the tumor is going to continuously grow and potentially kill the patient. So cancer is one of many diseases that we treat with monoclonal antibodies. So from our side, from BioUsawa, there are 3 areas where we are going to focus on. One is definitely cancer, and there are many types really of cancers. And the second one is ophthalmology. And the third one is infectious disease. When it comes to ophthalmology, As you know, diabetes is rampant in the continent. And usually 7 to 10% of diabetic patients have retinopathy. So they have this what's called diabetic macular edema. So if you have that, what standard of care is an injection of a monoclonal antibody like aflibercept or Lucentis, where basically prevent the patient from getting blind. So, but the cost, the current really cost is very high. So unfortunately, many patients, they prefer not to be treated, or actually they prefer to be treated, however, they cannot really afford it, and so sometimes decline treatment, which is really tragic because once you lose your sight, you're talking about impact on yourself, the family, but also economy. Actually, blindness has a huge impact on countries, really, on the poverty level of countries. Yeah. We have done this in the past. I mean, we have the team that we have assembled was part of the original team that was at Genentech 25, 27 years ago. And they set up manufacturing facilities really over. Genentech is almost really, it's based in South San Francisco. It's almost really the genesis of, it's the one that really discovered, but also really has been the mecca, being the mecca of monoclonal antibodies in the US, but also worldwide. So how do we lower the price? So if you think about any product, when they become really generics, the price goes down almost really by 95%. But when it comes to biologics, because they are really a complex protein really to make, and because of the environment around the world that really allows also really for the product to still remain at that high level really cost, they have been really selling it really still really at the same, almost the same price. In our case, we are going to focus on, when it comes to pricing, on the cost of good. How much does it cost us to make it? And then you add a small percentage really of margins, and with that, you can make it really affordable. So you can have it really almost really initially at the 80%, lowering basically by 80%. But with volume, particularly when we go on a Pan-African level, we are going to lower it by 90%. Yesterday we met, we presented our plan to the Rwanda FDA, which they are amazing to work with. We have presented our plan. We went really into details about what we are thinking, planning, including the plan design. And now we are going to move to the actual really construction of the module plants. So we expect the module plants, the turnkey, to be here in Rwanda by end of the year. And then the whole establishment setting up is going to take us to first quarter of 2026. So our goal is to have a GMP compliant plant by 2026, first quarter, and then start the actual production at the latest by early 2027. So when we started the company, basically the pre-seed money came, actually 80% came from African in the diaspora. Yeah. So our goal is to make really sure that we are almost really financially independent, so that we can really create our own path, but also stick with that path without being influenced by external factors. In this case, the US aid factor doesn't impact us at all, because we are self-sufficient, and we have a plan in working with different organizations that don't have that much connections with the aid. Yeah, so I think for us, being self-sufficient is a recipe really for a successful, sustainable success. We want to do it here in Africa, by Africans, for Africa, but ultimately, within the next 10 to 12 years, our goal is actually to start really in exporting cutting-edge, novel, quality monoclonal antibody to the West. There is a wrong narrative, when it comes to the continent, but all of us, whether we are Africans or friends of Africa, and we have been coming to the continent for some years, we know where the continent is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think all this narrative about really Africa is the future. Africa, there's a lot. Actually, it's laughable.
Yeah.
The future is now. The future was yesterday.
Right.
Africa has already moved to a completely different level.
Yeah.
So that's really, in one way, if I may, it's an obligation that the media has to help us to make really sure that that wrong narrative, get erased. Yeah.
The approach that we're going to take in Rwanda, for example, is we are going to make these beginning with modular systems, right? So with an understanding of the design of these modular systems, you can build and construct a facility abroad. In this case, we're actually constructing in San Francisco, bringing them here and ensuring that they are completely GMP compliant, right? To make sure that the quality of the finished product is second to none. The quality of the products that we have to make here has to be equivalent to product quality anywhere else in the world. Right? There are no double standards when it comes to medicines. And so for some of us, the background that we have, where we've worked for multinationals abroad, we understand why quality is important, and we make sure that we replicate those same standards here to ensure that patients get the most benefit out of the products we make. But another important consideration is that we're able to make these products at really much reduced cost than how they are made overseas. How are we able to do this? We're able to do this because we understand what the cost drivers have been for products made in developed countries. We are going to attack those cost drivers and ensure that they don't limit the ability of the patient to be able to afford these medicines. We'll figure this out. We know how to do it. And it's really inspiring and humbling that as Africans, we can bring a solution to help relieve our brothers and sisters of severe illnesses on the continent. Monoclonal antibodies are basically recombinant proteins, right? So these are drugs that mimic how the immune system works.
Yes.
This is why they are so effective, because with our immune system, which is what protects us against infections and other diseases, how God made us, we're able to protect ourselves a lot with the immune system. So by understanding the proteins involved in binding to receptors and ensuring that diseases don't progress like cancer, right? These all happen at the molecular level. Understanding how you can stop a cancer cell from progressing by using proteins that bind to receptors, you basically stop the cancer cell from multiplying or from becoming, from killing the patient. So they have what they call cell lines, right? These are mediums that are established or developed, which we can get from abroad. And then they use genes to make proteins, right? So once you have these genes, they develop or generate these proteins, you purify them, and these proteins are put into patient's body as generally infusions, intravenously or intramuscularly, and they go to work immediately in targeting specific receptors. This is why the side effects from monoclonals are so little, because they are very targeted, unlike other pharmaceutical products like chemotherapy that can end up destroying good cells as well. These are very focused and targeted to the disease cells. So my message to policyholders and to government really is to make sure that when investments are made to enhance local production, that there are policies put in place to ensure that these investments succeed, right? Because it is to our benefit to ensure that as we get into these new areas of treating diseases, that you encourage others to come in and continue to do this. And often we have lacked as governments or as countries to ensure that we protect investments that are made so that others can emulate and follow the same examples. So we hope that we are setting a path, we're setting an example that others can follow, really.